Matt, I have a burning question for you.
Oh boy. You don't even need to make the joke. That was
I will.
But go ahead. Yeah.
What happened when there was a fire in the shoe factory?
Were they burning rubber or something?
Many souls were lost.
Oh my god. But the person who invented that joke clearly doesn't have one, so...
Well, maybe they're ginger because their hair's on fire.
Okay.
Like Turlo.
Like Turlo.
Indeed. Speaking of,
Yeah.
hello and welcome to the next of the Worst of Classic Who series. We are going to be doing Planet of Fire, which is the penultimate story in the Davison era.
It is. And the third to last story in season 21.
Mm-hmm. And it is the... as far as I'm aware, this is the last story for Turlo and Chameleon, and it is the first story for Perry, and it was originally supposed to be the last story for the Master until the Mark of the Rani happened.
Yeah.
I believe that's what happens. Anyway, so I haven't seen it before. I'm looking forward to it. This is one of the ones on the DWM ranking that is ranked higher. Like, it's like this and, like, you know, Destiny, the Daleks, and Death to the Daleks are ranked a lot higher than some of the others on this list.
Yeah, because, like, I feel like this one is less so considered bad, but I would say it is definitely overlooked.
I can't remember who requested it, but somebody requested it be on this list. I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't think it should be on this list, because much like The Awakening, I think it's overlooked.
Well, I thought The Awakening was brilliant, if anyone's seen my video on that, so that if that's any indicator, then I'm in.
Yeah.
But this bridges the gap between Resurrection and K's, which is quite a turbulent time for the Doctor. And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with this one.
I would say, much like The Awakening, this is more so a breather episode. Or I say episode, serial. Unlike The Awakening, this has more time to flesh out its plot.
Okay.
And more so the world building. I would say the world building is what makes this episode, personally. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Right. The only thing I'm worried about, really, is Chameleon, because of... Because I've seen The King's Demons now, and I've seen that deleted scene in The Awakening, and I was not impressed.
This is definitely Chameleon's best outing. I've not seen the deleted scene, but let's face it, this is probably going to be better than that.
Yeah.
Because Chameleon gets stuff to do as a character.
Right.
But you can tell they only did this because they wanted to get rid of Chameleon.
I see. Yeah, I mean...
And because they couldn't really operate Chameleon because the original operator died.
Yeah, well, the thing is in the King's Demons, he actually barely even appears on screen at all. And when he does, it's really creepy and Uncanny Valley.
Chameleon is active in the plot. And what I'm going to say is he does spend most of the time being transformed as people. Mainly one person, and you could probably guess who. But not just that one person. And also it does good service for Turlo, as although I don't necessarily think this is his strongest outing, it definitely focuses on him somewhat. I would say if any main character is lacking, it's going to be Perry, because although it is her introduction, I don't think they did badly.
Okay.
They don't necessarily focus on her that much. She's more so an innocent bystander in all of this. Right. And just joins at the end.
I see. Well, interesting. Try not to spoil anything else.
No, like, these are just general pointers about what the story's going to be like, but I'm not going to go into plot details, character moments. No, those are the stuff that we're saving for watching.
Alright then. Well,
yes.
Those of you watching, if you really desperately want to get your paragraphs in, leave a comment below for us to defend stuff against Hellbent. We do that at the end of these videos. But I just be aware you are really, really running out of time because we've only got a few of these left now. So
we already recorded the next one I'm going to be doing.
Oh yeah.
With Connor.
Oh yeah.
And specifically noting on that, I'm not going to spoil what we talk about or the video I'm going to be in yet, unless if you're willing to share which video I'm going to be in, Connor. But let's just say my opinion on the next story I'm going to talk about, Defending Against Hellbent, has changed for the better.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say.
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
You'll see on my review thread what I would give it, so...
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
I'm not saying which episode it is, because it's a surprise.
Well, if anyone wants to keep an update on sort of our brief opinions on stories, we both have threads on Twitter as we're rewatching the show, so go check that out if that interests you. We also have Patreon. Check that in the description. There's good stuff there. Just do that. That's the thing. That's the thing. Right, Matt. Anything else you want to discuss before we jump right into Planet of Fire?
Not that I can think of. Also, it's very late, so over here for me, it's like nearly 1 a.m, so we're probably going to be here like.
And that's all my fault. It's all my fault.
Because you're a sleepy New Zealander.
Mm-hmm.
You utter New Zealander, as Will said last time. Also, I'm gonna call Will out for keeping on, like, insulting my being a mathematician just because, like, I don't fucking know, I like Curse of Fenric. Or some shit. I don't fucking know, that's what you discussed last time, right? Because I watch these videos sometimes.
Yes.
But yes, that's that out of the way. I like how, like, all of you guys, like, treat it as, like, a chore to get out of the way at the beginning.
Yeah. Well...
Anyway.
Damn, you better do it.
I think this version of the theme could, like, have a rock cover.
It probably does somewhere.
I don't know. I don't know if it has a rock cover, but I know this theme and the Series 4 theme are the most suitable for rock covers.
Oh, bloody Before the Flood.
Oh yeah, and Before the Flood. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I mean, Before the Flood is already a rock cover in itself. Something interesting about Planet of Fire is that the location filming here is done in Lanzarote. And look at these buildings. These look way better than fucking BBC sets. It actually makes it look filmic. Like, Fiona Cumming is one of my favourite Doctor Who directors, because she literally makes things look expensive and look filmic. Also, Lanzarote doubles as not only Sarn, but Lanzarote. And then it doubles as the moon, like 30 years later, but let's not talk about that.
Yeah, can I pick... Very cool location filming, actually.
Yeah, as I was just saying.
What? You just... It's like if a mushroom was erect.
That's not what I describe it as. These are religious types, by the way.
I can tell.
Same as the Day of Fire.
Yeah.
Why the importance of this month? Tradition! You were founded by slopes of the volcano.
Tradition! You are the chosen one!
Yeah. Yeah.
In this time, one day, it'll all be back.
I'm loving this act.
Well, we were together a long time.
Chameleon sounds like fucking Metaltron being fucking tortured.
The deleted scene in The Awakening has him playing around in this area, so that would have been set up for this.
Yeah. I don't think it's I wouldn't think it's pivotal setup though. Peter Davison looks so dumb with Chameleon.
Yeah. That's what we did when we look at Philip. It's like when we were like, Ford of Doomsday has magnificent themes and politics and action. He's like, no, it's boring.
And then he's like, chameleon is epic.
Chameleon is breathtaking. Oh, hello there.
Yeah.
With some octogenarian from Miami Beach.
Very British sounding American.
Yeah. I do wonder what it would have been like if Perry had been British. And Nicola Bryant used her natural accent.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
This island, Howard. I'm bored out of my...
This island, Howard.
She started to sound more Australian.
Oh, stop playing the heavy stepfather, Howard. You're not dressed for it.
Damn it, Perry.
Damn it, Perry.
Thanks, Howard.
Yeah, that scene just feels a bit
Very stilted.
still like it's I mean it's written well enough.
Oh, yeah. I just think, forcing people to do accents can be problematic.
Yeah, it is literally the performances, and I'm not saying the actors are bad actors. Obviously, Nicola Bryant can be excellent.
It's a sort of weird middle ground, because their expression is good, it's just the voices are a bit like, ugh.
Morocco's not going anywhere at the moment.
Oh dear.
He's being a cunt.
Low down, cheap, rotten, sneaky. You won't get away with it, Howard. You hear me?
American Dallas.
Dollars. When I was starting out, my stepfather loaned me nothing. He tried to desert me on a boat.
Finish,
Oh.
chameleon.
That's a mood. Oh, one for the dads.
Oh. Well, here we go. Oh, and one for Will.
Hey, I think Mark Stripson's attractive.
Okay.
So it's not just for Will. Basically, this episode is designed for the bisexuals
Yeah,
and the
I
pansexuals.
can tell.
Which means I'm very interested. Maybe that's why I like Planet of Fire so much.
Hmm. So I'm gonna assume that Perry hasn't been taught how to swim. Oh my goodness. Turlo. What are you...
I like how he takes his trousers off, but like keeps his shirt on. Like, no, take more off, please. I'm awful.
I would have thought it was the other way around. Like, you'd want to keep the trousers on, but the shirt off.
Meanwhile, I'm just like, I do not like being wet when I like. The more clothes I have on, unless if they're designed to get wet, like I wouldn't want to wear in water.
Yeah. And the doctor's just having a good time.
Yeah.
Is that his money? What? What?
I like how he just took out the wrong bunny. That's just
Oh,
funny.
wait. There's a beach in New Zealand that looks exactly like this.
Well, this is Lanzarote. Not too far from where they filmed Kill the Moon. Same country and all.
Oh, wet sheets. Now that's not a good thought. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
Uh-huh.
Now, isn't that interesting?
It is. Oh, Turlo, you're wet. See, they're actually using Chameleon.
Chameleon used like a nightmare. Come to life.
I never actually quite saw it like that before. Yeah.
Maybe Chameleon is the Dream Lord.
Doctor burn his hand on the console. Might need some nanogenes for that.
The doctor's gonna be like,
I like his mustache.
Turlo, you brought a girl home.
And then the Doctor would be like, yes, I like that.
I like how
the
all the Turlo Fifth Doctor Big Finish happened between the last story and this one, and yet the Doctor's still...
Even though it's like...
Even though he's
like,
mentions
oh,
the
the Daleks! I fucking hate the Daleks! Yeah, I always found that odd. It's that boy.
I am the master, and you will obey me.
But it's still Chameleon though, right?
Yeah. Although... You'll see why. You'll see.
Interesting.
The Master is definitely involved.
Right.
I'll say that much.
Okay. Well, that was an episode of Doctor Who.
It was an episode of Doctor Who. It's one that I very much like.
Yeah. I'm a bit lost for words, actually. So
there's not really much you can say about it. It kind of just happens, but it's still very, like, decently structured and entertaining, in my opinion.
so they established this world that looks like Lanzarote has got fire on it.
Yeah.
And they have apparently some kind of god they worship. The people went up to the mountain and saw that the fire wasn't there, or at least it wasn't in full force. Whatever was prohibited wasn't there. Then you got the son of that guy. I can't remember his name. He's like destined to be the chosen one or whatever, and he has the branding on his arm. And it turns out that Turlo also has that branding on his arm.
Which implies they're at least connected.
And then that plot device thing somehow ended up on Earth, right?
Yes.
And then Perry got it off her stepfather because he wasn't going to let her go to Morocco and then to New York. And then she took it so she could try and sell it, and then Turlo found her almost drowning in the water and then took her out and then put her in the TARDIS. Meanwhile, the Doctor was doing something else. He was... I don't know. What was he doing?
Vibing.
Yeah. I guess the Doctor was kind of the least important part of the story, wasn't he?
So far, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course Chameleon is involved and gets like connected up to the TARDIS by accident, and then turns into Howard, and then turns into the Master.
Something that you've not mentioned that I wasn't speaking over. Can I just mention? But something that you've failed to mention in this recap is that Chameleon intercepted some transmissions from Tryon.
Okay.
Or something like that, and I think it was from Tryon. Tryon was mentioned at least. Sorry, I've had a wee bit of alcohol, and that's why he took control of the TARDIS to land in Lanzarote in the first place.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's what set all this into motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. It was all set up, wasn't it? Basically, the whole episode was just set up.
I mean, it is a part one, yeah. All the stuff on Sarn is definitely set up in world building, and they mentioned this outsider, and a lot of the, I guess, lore to do with that is, well, the lore that they mentioned involved the TARDIS landing.
Yeah,
I think prophecy.
I think my favourite part of the episode was the sort of the reveal that Turlo has that brand on his arm. I think that's the most interesting thing.
Yeah, because it makes you go, "Oh shit!"
Yeah,
this is important. Turlo's going to be important.
Exactly.
For once.
Well, he was important. We got hints of his backstory in Frontios as well. With the Tractators.
Yeah.
So they're drip feeding bits about him, which is good. Because when they don't do that, he's usually just forgotten about, like in the King's Demons, where he just does nothing of any consequence.
Yeah. Can I just ask? Do you know what Tryon is?
No.
Okay. I'm not going to explain it because they explain it in the episode.
Right. Sounds familiar, though.
It will do, for good reason.
Okay. This carrot's very bendy.
Huh? The carrot's very bendy.
Yeah, carrot's very bendy.
Are you eating carrots?
Oh, yes.
Good for your eyes. You want to see every detail.
Oh, by the way, this is my last Davison story I haven't seen, by the way.
Yeah. Good one to end on, in my opinion.
See about that.
And here's a hot take. Oh.
Who are you?
I like how he had to get into the chameleon pose.
The Mesos Triangle. Is that what it's called? It means there are people from Tryon here,
Ah.
my home planet.
Yeah, it's Turtle's home planet.
I was hoping that'd answer some questions about Turlo I didn't know. And here we are. And here's the
Yeah.
Master's TARDIS.
Imagine if I said it was someone else's TARDIS. I'd be lying, but it is the Master's TARDIS, yeah.
You must.
Chameleon is such a tragic character.
Yeah.
Why?
Why what?
Why is he silver?
Because I think it's because Chameleon's glitching. Because he's trying to be independent from the Master who's controlling him.
Yes, Planet of Fire is for all sexualities.
If you're into DILFs... Although people who are into MILFs, not really for you. But hey, at least Philip's got Chameleon. He doesn't need MILFs if he has Chameleon. I like how I'm calling out Philip more. I'm sorry, Philip.
Not Mr. Brown.
Right on his head.
That could have been shot. That could have been shot better, admittedly. It just looked like someone went bonk. Oh, yeah. There's a MILF. But there's DILFs, plural. There's like at least 3 in this story. 4 if you count Chameleon in his base form, which I'm not, so there's 3.
Of course, you got the Twink Doctor as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, like, Fivey and Turlo just give me 2 Twink boyfriend vibes.
Well, I mean, if you look at the start of Worrieds the Deep, it's very clear that they've just fucked. He's adjusting his time.
I'd rather not look at any of Warriors of the Deep.
Yeah, religion's a tough gig, innit?
In it, yeah. Especially when when they're not listening to you, even though you're the Jesus figure.
Now we need to.
Because he's essentially the Messiah.
Now we need to see Chameleon and Speedos.
I don't think we'll get your wish fulfilled.
John Nathan Turner's trying so hard to manipulate me right now, but it's not going to happen.
What do you mean?
I'm focusing on the story!
Most of the shapes are covered up, though.
I like how you call it the shapes.
Well, the shape of her cleavage is covered up. I like how she's already remembered their names. I wouldn't have.
She's in a crisis.
I like how we've been making fun of it, but I genuinely love this story. Like, there's stuff you can make fun of. There's stuff that's unintentionally funny. But I'm not saying it's so bad it's good, because the story itself is actually good. You know how when you and Will watched The Awakening, you were really looking forward to like how it would eventually look on Blu-ray? I feel the same way but about this.
Why didn't they send a rescue ship from Tryon?
Trial.
You are from Tryon? The home planet?
Oh, we are from Sun.
Very interesting, Turlo.
Yeah. Because I think they're more so a rebel unit, like rebelling from the religious order.
That's a...
Because like
phallic?
Anthony only
That's
wears a toupee.
Even this story is good if you like phallic rocks, like phallic-shaped rocks. If you're a seer that likes volcanic things, there you go.
If you like things that look good, men, women, rocks, like if you like those things when they look good. No wonder it's called Planet of Fire. I mean,
Where are you, Camille? Come on, show me your real self. Come on.
She's treating Camille like a dog.
Yes, Camille, your real self. Come on.
he looks like he's about to shit. Yeah, but Perry's already caught on to the fact that Chameleon and the Master are two separate entities, and the Master's bad, and Chameleon is at least better.
For a second,
people think-
I thought Chameleon was going to fall off that cliff.
Yeah.
Or maybe he still will. No, that won't happen.
I think they're trying to bait... But it's always good to see lens flares.
By the way, I've noticed Nicola Bryant's performance has improved since part 1. Like, she's gotten the hang of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine seeing that appear. You're like, what? Is this the god we've been looking for?
Be at one with me.
God,
Very sexual dialogue.
I think you said Thary's sexual dialogue.
No, very sexual dialogue.
I mean, he is sitting down.
He sent you to help us
This is very sexual.
through the time of fire.
Yeah. The Master's like, yes, I'm your god. Hello.
Huh.
It's like...
It's like if it's like
It's
you know,
weird, this-
you know the Ewok see C-3PO as a god, except imagine if C-3PO could transform into a person.
Yeah. Like, with this story, it's like... I love it, but, like, it doesn't really stick in my mind that much.
I think this equipment came from my father's ship.
Oh.
Oh.
I'm glad no one's
Baking
ever.
a mystery
I'm so
around
glad. I'm so glad that no one's ever spoiled this for me.
Yeah. Baking a mystery around Turlo being a mysterious character already is a genius way to set up the story.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna call out Will now. Why the hell do you not like Turlo? Turlo's great.
I don't love Turlo personally, but I do feel like when he's done well, he's done really well.
Yeah. This story, Frontiers, and the Black Guardian trilogy, I think he's done really well.
I don't think he's done that well in the Black Guardian trilogy.
I disagree.
I don't think he's done poorly. I think he's done decently.
The only one where I don't think he's done the only one I think he's done kind of poorly is the King's Demons, because he's just sort of locked up for all of it, isn't he?
Yeah, but has anything done well in the King's Demons?
I guess the Five Doctors as well, but he's not done badly in that. It's just he's just sort of there with Susan and the TARDIS.
Yeah, he's fairly overshadowed by a lot of things.
That zoom out.
Yeah.
Do as the outsider has instructed! No!
Oh dear.
Ooh.
Ah, here we go.
I love Doctor Master encounters.
Won't you know it?
Come on, we have to get back to the doctor.
Oh, no, please.
I like how Perry's just having a rough time.
Yeah. Jesus, this is quite dark actually.
Like, it isn't bleak like most stories in this season, but it is serious. It is grounded. Kind of like The Awakening, actually. Except The Awakening had a much more quaint setting. This feels like a much
The Awakening
richer
was very
story.
oppressive though. That's
Yeah.
that's one thing I did notice. Oh dear. Well,
Like,
very interesting.
This, like, clearly this story is definitely not among the same ranks as, like, Frontios and Resurrection and Caves.
In terms
And
of its tone, yeah.
Warriors of the Deep, but that's shit, so we don't count it. But, like, this is still, quality-wise, I would say it's among those, personally.
We're only halfway though, but yeah, I'm actually really into the story now.
Yeah.
I think the way that they have the Master not only manipulate Chameleon, but also be sort of seen as the, seen as an influence on this religious group, and then the Doctor finding out, oh shit, he's behind this.
It's something that's in character, but we don't tend to see.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Really good stuff. I think
Yeah.
Turlough's a standout in this story.
Definitely.
I also really like that scene on the top of the cliff face where he says, I am the Master, and you will obey me. And she says, well, I'm Perfect Alien Brown, and I can shout as loud as you can.
Yeah. It's like... Yeah, I do think the story is very overlooked.
Also, yeah, this
think-
is definitely the only story on TV that actually uses Chameleon to any good capacity.
Yeah. I mean, there's only, like, 2, 3 if you count deleted scenes, stories. So it's, like, not statistically likely.
I'm saying, I'm praising them because they found a way to use Chameleon.
Just when they were wanting to fucking trash him.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that he couldn't really have been in any of the stories. That's the problem. Because he's just too...
He didn't really fit narratively.
Here's the thing. Chameleon's a very, very powerful character. And so the only way you can realistically use him is have a malfunction. And that's what they've done here.
Yeah. The only way you can use him... Like... Because, like... Chameleon you could theoretically just have as a regular companion. And that's fine, but the only way to do something interesting with him as a character is, as you said, malfunctioning.
I feel like if Chameleon was a regular companion, it would mostly just be it would be a gimmick, because it would be one of those things where it's just like, oh, we can bring in random guest stars to play a companion for one story. Like, that's kind of what...
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I feel like if that's all the character is, a gimmick. I mean, that's basically what Clara was in Series 7B. Or just Series 7 as a whole, actually.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, once I finish Planet of Fire, we'll see if I change my mind or not. But in my most recent, companion ranking, Clara and Chameleon were at the bottom. But we'll have to wait and see if Chameleon goes up after this story. The thing is, it's kind of like... It's not even really a Chameleon anyway. It's just Chameleon being manipulated by the Master.
Yeah, it's Chameleon losing grip of who he is. And the thing is, I feel like because Chameleon hasn't really been used much up until this point, you don't really get that emotional weight. Yeah. It's interesting, but that's all it is, interesting.
You know what is interesting, though, is that you could... It's crazy to say, but you could argue that they've done more with Chameleon in these 2 stories than they've done with Yaz in 2 seasons. It's kind of weird, eh?
Well, no, they did more with Chameleon in this one story. Let's face it.
They did a small bit in the King's Demons, I guess.
And that was part of his gimmick.
The thing is I actually quite like the performance from the guy who plays King John in the King's Demons.
Yeah, who also plays Chameleon.
Yeah.
He is the voice of Chameleon on TV.
Anyway, so we're halfway through Planet of Fire. This is good stuff.
We are. It is good stuff.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see how you'd rank it among other stories. I don't know. Give it out of 10.
There's a lot still left to go. We're only halfway. We've still got good.
Yeah.
Good.
I know. I'm not asking you. I'm not prying you. I'm just saying I'm interested to see how things go.
But I am liking.
Because I think we are past the worst of it, in my opinion.
Well, I think the worst of it was.
And the worst of it is just cringy stuff that we laugh at.
Well, I think the worst of it was just stilted accents in the first episode. Really, that's the only real downer I had about
Yeah.
it. But I think
Yeah. And
Perry.
we're past that.
I think actually Nicola Bryant's performance has actually gotten better in part 2. So I think that's sort of been repaired. I think the thing about this story that has been the best thing, that's been the most interesting thing, is Turlough's character. I think he's been done really well.
Yeah.
And I just
Definitely.
I just have to say, like, Mark Strickson, in all of his performances, he just has this way of being unusual that I find interesting. I just love the way he has his own little thing going on in every scene he's in, and that makes him different.
And he feels like he's... It feels like, although yes, he's definitely friends with the Doctor, he doesn't feel like it, but
Well,
it's
I like how it's like... I like how it's not he's tied to the Doctor's side. It's very much they're two very individual people that happen to both be together. And it's like the Doctor may be, piloting the TARDIS and getting him around, but in terms of his motivations, he's very individual, especially in this story where it's tying to his home and he's very much taking initiative, asking questions, doing things on his own whim. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. I feel like the Doctor and Turlough are less so friends and more so roommates who happen to like each other. But they're not necessarily friends.
Yeah.
They're not, I wouldn't exactly expect, like, Turlough to have had a massive impact on the Doctor's life. Like, if the Doctor ever recounts things, like, you definitely hear about Eirich because his death caused stuff in the Doctor's life. And you'd hear the Doctor, for better or for worse, more likely the latter, Clara, definitely had impact on the Doctor's life, regardless of if we like it or not.
Yeah, I can also
even
though I don't actually know what happens at the end of the story. I guess I'll find out, but I think Turlough being a companion that doesn't stick around for too long makes sense as well, when you consider the fact that he's not exactly a companion that you would expect to stay around for a very long time, considering that he's not as tied. It's not like a Sarah Jane or a Joe or a Tegan who are very tied to the Doctor.
He stayed for half of Davison's TV tenure.
Yeah, but it's still, in terms of that, it's still only, it's not excessively long. That's what I'm trying to say.
Like Tegan, for example.
What?
Or I guess in terms of, if you count like expanded media canon, Nyssa as well.
Yeah, because there's not that many just 5 and Turlough stories, is there? Like, obviously there's...
That is probably mainly that's probably to do with Mark Strickson's availability. There was a couple this year. There was a monthly range audio that happened. I think
there's
it was the penultimate one.
Well, there's a few that he has where Tegan and Nyssa are there.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm speaking...
But there's not many with him and...
Yeah, just him and the...
Feige alone.
Like, I know there's Phantasmagoria, and then I think there's another one in the main range that I've listened to, but I can't
There's,
remember.
I want to say there's 4 stories... At least 4 stories where they're alone in the main range. And other stories release, and then End of the Beginning has the Doctor travelling with Turlough. The 5th Doctor travelling with Turlough. That's his current companion at that point.
Yeah, so there's only a few stories between Resurrection and Planet of Fire, I guess. Even though at the start of Planet of Fire he mentions the Daleks.
There's probably some books and some short stories. So it's like the Doctor's like constantly thinking about the Daleks, just like, fucking hate those Daleks. Fucking hate those Daleks. Then again, the Doctor's always like that, especially like post Time War.
It's not
like,
as much as it's not as much of a massive gap as the one between Planet of Fire and Caves, where you've got an entire like range of the 5th Doctor and Perry and Eramem.
The thing is, it doesn't mess with the continuity. It just messes with the themes, but it isn't like the most important theme of Caves. It's just one that people get very attached to for good reason.
Also, I can definitively say now I've done. I mean, I already was before this marathon like reappraising the 5th Doctor, but I've done like a full like I love him now.
I mean, you're at the end of his run. And the next story is literally a story you love so much as part of your username.
Exactly. Yeah, the fifth
So,
Doctor is
you can have good
proper
judgment.
pog. I'm very happy about this, by the way.
I'm not a fan of season 20 or him in season 20, but other than that, I really like the Fifth Doctor.
I really like him in season 20. In fact, it's the only one that I don't have issues with them. Because my only issues with 5 are in Time Flight and Warriors of the Deep. And they're not in season 20. Execution by Fire, that is brutal. Gee, this is a very, like, hardcore religious group.
But because the Master has essentially said, "I am your God," that makes essentially the leader of their the leader of their society has decided this overrules our Messiah.
Seems like the doctor could do with some more help.
Little.
Listening to it. It's from his target.
Little. I love 80s music.
As for the doctor, he'll die in the Holocaust.
It's the Master wearing eyeliner.
I was gonna make a mention about, you know, the burning and the fire being like a Holocaust, but he just said it.
Yeah. I don't think this society is necessarily one allegory. I think it's just a pure fantasy setting with multiple inspirations. Which isn't necessarily what I find interesting in fiction, especially sci-fi, but it's still interesting.
When you combine multiple allegories into one bit of world building, it creates a more broad theme rather than a specific one.
Yeah. I tend to like specific themes.
We must get after Perry.
You don't
But,
understand,
like,
Doctor.
here's the
Come
thing.
on. I think Malcolm is my
I
brother.
love this.
Oh!
Hence why I've got the same marking.
Does everyone from Tryon have this mark?
No. You have to be very special to wear the Mesos.
Just the way Mark Christian
Ah.
says things, it's intriguing.
Yeah.
It
Also,
always...
Turlo is a special kid.
The doctors.
But infinitely superior.
Except
except a goth.
black.
Hated by the false outsider. The Doctor is no enemy. He's the rightful custodian of the box. You compound the murderer Malcolm by defying your new leader. Let the Doctor pass.
Wow.
It almost feels like all of Turlo's mannerisms have been building up to him becoming a fucking badass in the story.
I almost feel like he's the main character, and the Doctor's kind of secondary.
Maybe that's what Peter Grimwade was intending.
Oh.
Because he also wrote Turlo's first story, Mordred Undead.
He also wrote Time Player, which technically is where
That's...
Chameleon comes from.
Yeah, Seraphis. And also it had the Master in it.
Mhm.
So it all... This is like Peter Grimwade's like climactic finale. People compare Anthony Ainley to a cat. And that's fair.
He doesn't have power of hypnotism, though, does he? Not anymore, anyway.
Because
Probably
at
'cause he-
least he was...
Probably because of how he, you know, crumbled and became the Crispy Master, right?
If not that, then it's maybe because he's through Chameleon. He's acting through Chameleon.
That's true.
Maybe it's a combination of the two.
Although he uses hypnosis in The Sound of Drums, but that's kind of different. That's magnified.
Because, yeah, not only that, but he's also full Time Lord at that point.
I like how Turlo, because he understands this culture, he knows how to talk to them and what will tick them.
Yeah. And also Turlo knows what's right. He's being propelled by justice.
I wonder if that's what the Master wants. To be born again.
Ah, yes, of course. Reinvigoration.
Yeah. But
I also
so yeah,
quite
that is
like,
what he wants, but
I
not in
also-
the way that you think.
I also quite like how the effects of this religion is, in terms of this specific part of it, the effects of it are in, when I say recent, I don't mean like recent, but I mean as in, it's not like thousands of years. It's like this specific part of it has been affected through this one person's lifetime. So it's like a recent thing. And that's probably why the culture is so extreme, because it's so recent and it hasn't been watered down yet.
Yeah.
By progressive attitudes, even if there is fighting back and like doubt, in terms of what events impacts the religious beliefs, they're still very much at the eye of the storm.
Yeah. And naturally, they would be at the eye of the storm until the events have passed. If anything, this would be a later chapter in their religion's Bible.
Yes.
Like the events of the story.
Yes, like sort of near Revelation.
Yeah. As opposed to they already have a Bible. It's like, this is really good tension.
Turlo ashamed to share all the information.
Yeah. And the doctor's like, I know you're hiding something, and if the Master would benefit from this information being hidden, fuck off.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting no more power.
Because they're not close.
I may have a puny mind, but you don't need to be Albert Einstein to find the off switch.
Albert Einstein. Ah.
Yeah.
You escaped from my slave, but you will obey me
Uh-huh.
or die.
Ah. Miniaturized.
So when
himself.
I said you're right about how the Master needs to rejuvenate himself, but you weren't necessarily entirely right as to why.
I'm wondering if if he did that to himself, or if that's something that happened to him after the 5 Doctors.
I think it's cause like I don't remember every detail about the story, like, because I've not seen it many times, and it isn't like such a grand story where everything just is etched into my mind, even if I really enjoy it. From memory, I think it is to do with the tissue compression eliminator,
Okay.
but I can't remember the precise things. I don't want to make any guesses because I don't want to look stupid.
Yeah, well, I mean, part 3 again just continued the same momentum, the same story. You got more stuff with Turlo, the fact that he reckons that was his brother, and then the fact that it turns out that maybe Turlo's father was doing something that was very unfaithful, and the Doctor is concerned about that information being hidden from him and the Master being benefiting from it. Turlo being ashamed of what his father might have been doing.
Yeah.
And and then the whole thing with the religion and like them wanting a Holocaust and burning people in fire. You've got it's just it's hard for me to really talk about it in detail, but it's just good.
Yeah, because it's like, although there's a load of details in here, it's not really something that you watch and digest and like can pick apart. It's like, even though it is more complex than you're able to describe it, like you were describing the complexities to it.
Yeah, it might just be
It's not
because
really much you can
my
say
brain's not 100% switched on, so maybe my words aren't coming out as well as they usually do. But
yeah, because you basically just woke up half an hour before we started.
Yeah, but it is really good. I'm really invested in this story.
I don't have much to say about it either, because it's like it's not really a story
kind of just
where
like,
anything leaps out at you other than, oh yeah, this is happening and it's interesting.
Yeah, we got revealed about the gases and potential reinvigoration for the Master, which is again interesting and fits into his motivations. It's just that the thing is that I said about part 2, I can say a lot of in terms of quality about part 3 as well. It's just like Turlo's part of it is the most interesting thing. Then you got this whole religious world building. You got the Master's plan. You've got the Doctor's involvement and his tension with Turlo with it, and then obviously Perry's part of it and Chameleon, and it's just It's really good. It's really good. Yeah.
Like, I rank this story fairly highly because it does have a surprising amount of working parts to it, even if, like, it doesn't leave much of an impact.
Yeah.
Like,
now,
it's not like...
I heard from, I've heard from Will. Apparently, in this part, like, the master, I don't know, apparently he jumps up Perry's skirt or something. That's what I've heard.
I don't remember that.
Or something happens, I can't remember. Maybe that was a meme.
Yeah. I could make a joke, like, at the end of this, but I might forget it. So I'm just going to say Planet of Fire's lit.
Okay. Very good. Anyway. Let's start part 4. My final Davison episode that I haven't seen.
I like how she's just fucking disgusted by a tiny master. So there's healing gases as well as harmful gases.
Very cool.
So this fire's not only powerful, it's varied in properties.
Mini master.
Yeah. Does the master leave his TARDIS purposefully dusty just in case of this fucking scenario?
Who the hell knows?
Yeah, I like to think the master's like, that was part of my plan, you see, I leave my TARDIS dusty just in case.
Trap my enemies with a common cold.
Make them sneeze, it will distract them.
You can tell he's already thinking about what's going to happen now.
You are all that is left of the indigenous population.
Wow.
That's why he was hiding something.
Wow.
That's why Turlo's a prick, because he's a prick.
This is so satisfying getting Turlo's backstory. It's what I've been wanting.
Because Frontios is less so about him and more about his people.
Yeah.
Which you could say is actually a subtle foreshadowing for this. I like how the Awakening exploring Tegan is sort of foreshadowing for her inevitable realization that, nah, she wants to go.
Ah. Molten rock. More splashing.
As long as they don't send me back to Brendan.
Yeah.
Well, the worst place in the universe, English public school on Earth. Let's get back to the other.
Yeah. Gotta love that.
How does it feel to get a taste of your own medicine? Doctor, albeit in somewhat reduced circumstances.
Reduce. Ah, I see.
Destroying me. Please.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Doctor had to destroy Chameleon.
So I think this is the first time the Doctor's actually fucking killed his companion.
Cancel re-injection immediately. Doctor! I'll plead you to the end of time for this. Help me! See to your own.
I knew what he was about to say there.
Better say what, sorry? Didn't quite hear him.
He was going to say you wouldn't do this to your own brother, is what he was going to say. But he was cut off by the fire.
Yeah. This has probably been me affected by Stan Twitter, but I much prefer the idea that they were old lovers. And I think Stephen Moffat does as well, and that's why he kind of canonized it. And I'm okay with that.
Thank you for everything. Look after him, won't you? Get into the most.
I think a hug would have done a lot better between them. because
I like
Turlo's
how-
finally
I like
opened
how-
up to him.
I like how Turlo says look after him and he literally dies in the next story.
3 months, you say?
That's right.
All right. Why not? Welcome aboard, Perry.
I like that. Yeah, I like that scene. It's a nice scene. I think it's a very nice story.
And now many stories in Big Finish.
They travel with a pharaoh. The Doctor collects the key to time again.
Mm-hmm.
Other bullshit. Meets the Ice Warriors multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Necromantia.
No. Planet of Fire.
Yes, Planet of Fire.
Yeah.
It's just a really solid story, isn't it? Like, really good world building, interesting for Turlo. Perry, Chameleon gets killed by the Doctor. That was a big moment.
Yeah, but there's a good amount of build up for Chameleon in that story because Chameleon actually does get good material.
It's actually a bit it's actually, you know, got a bit of tragedy to it that the Doctor had to kill Chameleon in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I wouldn't say it was, you know, I wouldn't say it's like a monumental classic, but I really liked it. You could argue there's
For me, there's a difference between a classic and a story that you personally like. Because a classic is not only a story that you like, but also is one that will be etched into your brain no matter what. This doesn't really do the latter, but it does the former a lot for me.
Yeah, I guess if I were to criticize it, I think there's a bit of tonal shifting, like between, you know, when you think about the like really quite bleak scenario of, you know, this religious society and their struggles, and like Turlo's backstory and the fact that the Doctor has to kill Chameleon and also watch the Master burn. It's quite bleak, but then also you got stuff like Perry chasing Mini Master around his TARDIS and she's like sneezing. It's quite funny.
Yeah,
and
I feel like
the elements clash.
That
a little
scene
bit.
at that point in the story is fair enough. Yeah,
I think maybe the comedy and the drama do clash a little bit, but not too badly.
I feel like for the most part, like especially towards the beginning when it's all setting up, it like mostly streamlines into like one continuous. This tone will have lighter moments and darker moments. That's something I accept. And then Mini Master being chased around by Perry, it's just like,
yeah,
okay, fair enough. Like I don't, but that's not egregious.
Yeah, I think
I said at that point that at least what was happening was serious enough that where like although that's funny, it doesn't necessarily take you out of the story.
Yeah, I think I would definitely say my favorite part of this story was Turlo. I think he was definitely the thing that was about it that was used the best. And like the way it tied into the world building and the sort of the review, it's satisfying for such an enigmatic and mysterious character to finally get a proper backstory for him, and it's quite a complex one that unfolds in a really interesting way with like the branding and his father and his brother and all sorts of things. And I think it was a really interesting way to wrap up his character, and also nice to see, you know, sort of the Doctor in the end just sort of. They had a bit of tension of like, well, you hiding from information from me could actually be an issue, and it's kind of something that's been built up to, and then for the resolution at the end to just sort of, you know, they have their sort of goodbye. I like how the Fifth Doctor at this stage has become so fed up of all of the things that have been happening around him, and you know the fact that like with what happened last time with Tegan leaving and all the destruction with the Daleks and. With Turlo and him being quite an untrusting companion despite them being friends, and then this whole scenario with the Master once again causing a lot of distress for him, the fact that he had to kill Chameleon, the fact that all of this stuff is happening and then having to take on another new companion, it's really good work for his character transitioning into his final story, I think.
Yeah, and like all of these elements I feel like are overlooked. And people are just like, oh, it's just that like weird nothingy story like before Caves. But I disagree. I think this story has a lot going for it.
Yeah, it's a nice transitional story between Resurrection and Caves, I think. It does its job well. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it's still really good despite that. That makes sense. It's kind of hard to put my finger exactly on how I feel, because it's not like my criticisms of it are detrimental, but it's just that I think it's just a slight notch below some of the ones that I really, really like.
Meanwhile, I personally really, really like it, but it's not really something that I think about often. It's like, I'd say it's, for me, although the kinds of story it is compared to what I'm going to compare it to, it's quite different. I would say it's kind of like Frontier in Space in a way for me, where it's just like, it's not really something that I tend to think about often, but when I'm watching it, I'm hooked.
Right. Well, Frontier in Space is one of my favorite John Pertwee stories. It's like up there for me. So I
know. I feel like what I said is more so like, it's just more of an experience for me, and there's not really many stories that that fandom would generally accept to be a good example of that.
Yeah, I definitely.
It's just like you're watching.
I definitely think that this is an example of a story that people don't talk about as much, and I can see why.
I would say it's less hated and more overlooked.
Yeah, it is a very overlooked story. But yeah, no, it's Planet of Fire is not one of my favorite stories, but I did like it a lot. On the whole, it was a really good story. I just think that it's kind of it's difficult because I can't really tell you anything that's wrong with it. It's just that I like other things more. That's kind of where I would place my opinion on it. It's difficult to articulate exactly what I mean by that. But it was really solid. And the American accents in part 1 were a bit cringe, but we got past that.
Yeah, we did. That was definitely the weakest element of the story.
And obviously the location was fantastic. That's one of the strengths of the story.
Oh yeah. The location work was beautiful.
Very distinct. Something that we haven't really seen before.
Best use of Lanzarote in Doctor Who. And it's in the story that's written better.
Yes.
Yes!
Yes, and obviously there was the whole religious allegory as well, the way it combined a whole bunch of things together.
Yeah.
Interesting world building, and it had, like you said, it had a nice resolution at the end as well.
It did. Because everything just fit naturally. Everything developed naturally, and it was... Yeah.
Yeah.
I will have to say, it's not just the locations themselves that really speak to me. It's the actual direction and cinematography. Because it actually looks like... In all honesty, sometimes I prefer the way that Planet of Fire is directed to, like, New Who. Obviously, like, the traditional, like, BBC set-based stuff. Fair enough, but sometimes even on the BBC studio, like, it's directed in a way where it feels like it's a single camera setup as opposed to multi-camera, which was used. Like, it's stuff that people always credit Graham Harper as doing spectacularly on with Caves, but Fiona Cumming does it here. And Fiona Cumming is, again, one of my favourite Doctor Who directors, because she honestly makes things look like a spectacle. I mean, Enlightenment is the prime example.
Oh yeah, Enlightenment's sensational.
But, dare I say, I prefer her direction here. Not saying Enlightenment's not amazing, because it fucking is. But, like, yeah.
Well, she also directed Snake Dance, which also has a great setting.
Yeah,
and she also
it really utilizes the set as well.
Castrovelva, which is another story with a great setting.
I would say the issues with Castrovelva are technical limitations, and that's it.
Well,
nothing to do with her.
Well, haven't they been fixed on the Blu-ray?
Yes, it looks less shit. It looks fine now.
Rather than,
but the actual direction itself. Because what I'm on about is visual effects problems.
Yeah.
The direction itself is really good.
Yes, of course.
It always was.
Especially the location stuff. But, so, anyway, it's hard to put into words, because I just don't have enough I feel like I don't have enough to say about Planet of Fire, but that's not something against it. It's just, It's just a fundamentally really solid story, really. That's kind of how I...
Yeah.
how I
And
put
like,
it.
you're explaining why as you were going through, but these things aren't really necessarily essential things that we can, like, state in a climax to state in the overall thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like once, you know, we've done all the trivia stuff and you ask me to give my overall thoughts, I'm just going to say I like it. It written good. It directed good.
Oh, yes. Another
State
thing. The
only reasons why I would give it a 10.
The actor who plays the... I can't remember his name, but the primary religious character. I really like that actor.
Mustachio Man.
Yes. I think his name started with a V or something.
Yeah, something
He
like that.
he was very good.
Yes.
I really liked
I
his
think
performance.
every actor was good. It was just dodgy American accents were an issue. I'm not sure if the guy who played Howard is American or not. Like, his name sounds like it's American because his first name's Dallas.
I also think the story was a lot more somber than I was expecting. Considering this is the one
It's definitely... I think the reason why I feel like most people, myself included, say it's more lighthearted is because comparatively with the rest of the season, like, The Awakening is definitely much more quaint and lighthearted, even though it has some, like, tensions to it, and, like, the malice as an entity is quite psychological, horror-based, you know.
The actual practice of role-playing is quite brutal as well. It's quite oppressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, this story has like it's a weird like somber tone, and I feel like that makes it grounded. But overall, it's not. I wouldn't call it bleak. I wouldn't say it's like a hopeless scenario, but I would say it's a serious enough scenario where it's like you're gripped, you're absorbed completely seriously. Apart from the master's like fucking tiny and being chased around by Perry, but other than that, like, you know. Yeah.
I also appreciate the sort of change in costume. That's something that was refreshing. That I was
for a lot of people, like, everyone's costume was fairly different, and that's the
only one that wasn't different was the Master. Although, to be fair,
well, the Master
Chameleon playing the Master was a different costume.
It was, and that was refreshing to see Anthony Ainley in that costume. Because, like, the only other times he's been wearing something different is as Tremus or as a Master Disguise. I have a feeling that might be the last time we see him in a different costume until Survival. Give or take him dressed as a scarecrow, but that's another disguise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, something
my
I
God,
quite
I'm
like.
yawning.
Something I quite like about John Sim is he has like 4 different outfits in his run. Like he wears Derek Jacobi's Yana clothing in Utopia, and then he has Harold Saxon's.
I wouldn't count that, but yeah,
well,
Harold Saxon's.
Technically it counts. And then you got Harold Saxon's like
Fine.
Prime Minister suit, and then you've got his homeless man attire with the blonde hair in End of Time, and then you've got the Master like outfit in Dr. Falls. Oh, and you've also got Razor as well.
Yeah, that disguise. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and you've got his dressing gown in Last of the Time Lords as well.
And then you've got literally the Master Race.
Yeah. And then you've got him naked at the start of End of Time too, when he's resurrected.
He's wearing the mist around him.
Yeah. Never dying. Never dying.
Never dying. Yes.
Anyway.
And then you've got Pratt and Beavers who just wear that cloak.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, so historical and reception. Writing for Radio Times, Patrick Mulkern said that he observed that the writer Peter Grimwade laces his script with homosexual subtext, noting in particular the male eye candy on display, arguing that old sage Timonov's mentoring of callow youth Malcon's hint of pedestry, and also commenting that unmistakably phallic object hauled and received and fondled by Howard, Kurt, and Perry. I think we made the argument.
But here's the thing: there is a half-naked woman,
I think we've made it clear
and there's a MILF as well.
It's a very bisexual story.
It is a very bisexual story. I would agree it is surprisingly male-leaning, given that that iconic shot comes from this story.
In fact, actually, you could say that it's quite a pansexual story because it includes robots and rocks.
Yeah.
Very broad.
Very broad. Oh,
Yes.
Captain Jack would love this episode. That's not problematic, because the character isn't, the actor is. Separating the two.
Exactly. In the discontinuity guide, they thought that the new companion Perry made a good impression, helped by some decent lines. They said, as a whole, the story is less than the sum of its parts. Not a great deal happens, but is competently written, and location filming is excellent.
I think the studio filming's excellent too.
Impressingly, though, this story is ranked below Dinosaurs on a Spaceship in the rankings. And Let's Go Hitler.
I'm not sure how I'd rank Dinosaurs in a Spaceship myself, but I don't think I'd give it as high as I give Planet of Fire.
I think Dinosaurs on a Spaceship is garbage.
I don't think I've seen it properly in like
The
8
only
years.
the only thing about it that's not like completely terrible is probably Rory's dad.
Oh yeah, I mean everyone loves Brian. Everyone loved him at the time.
Though
Everyone still loves him.
the thing is, though, I think he's better in the Power of Three than he is in the Dinosaurs on a Spaceship.
I think the Power of Three is just a better episode in general.
Yeah,
Apart from
Dinosaurs on a Spaceship has character assassination in it, and that's a big no-no for me.
Meanwhile, Power of Three just has a fucking limp ending, but that's not surprisingly bad script. Isn't Chris Chibnall's fault this time with that one?
Well, some of it is, but yeah, the ending is definitely not.
But not the ending. Not the ending. The ending
But
is the only
those
real
people with
sin.
the weird mouths just disappearing though. Now that is Chris Chibnall's fault.
Yeah, but like that's inoffensive.
Anyway, well, hang on. You can't just have people disappear. That's not inoffensive. Where did they go? Do they just
I don't
exist?
fucking know. I've not seen this story in a couple of years. It's been more recent than Dinosaurs in the Spaceship.
Series
Actually, no, I think I
7's
did watch. No, I watched both of them. Actually, I forgot. Like Jean-Luc and I did a fucking watch along with all of Chibnall's Doctor Who stories before he became showrunner.
Look, Series 7's mostly crap. That's the take.
Yeah. Fuck off, Varys.
The only
was
story in Series 7 I will stand is the one that comes in between those two. Town Called Mercy. Love that story.
I really like
has
Wings of
its
Acton.
has its issues, but
Yeah,
I really like it.
I really like Wings of Acton. Personally.
I once heard someone call it the Rings of Arse Caton.
Well, that person is probably a ring of arse Karen.
Oh, anyway, Planet of Fire is written by Peter Grimwade, and as we
Yes.
discussed, he kind of has this little arc that he goes on with all 3 of his stories, you know, with time
But,
flight.
like, there's a wider
Mordred
context
Undead.
applied to that, too.
Like Planet of Fire ties off things that come from both Time Flight and Mordred Undead. That's
Time
interesting.
Flight less directly.
Yeah.
It's more so master continuity because Time Flight was a master story. That's how that ties in.
You know what was interesting though is when I was watching Time Flight, looking at the Zeraphins and the Vision, I was thinking that thing does look a bit like Chameleon, and then lo and behold, it actually has a connection.
Yeah, because Chameleon is from Zeraphis.
Exactly. Very interesting. As we discussed, the direction by Fiona Cumming was fantastic, especially the location stuff.
Mwah. Yeah.
And she also did Castle River, Snake Duns, and Enlightenment, and did great work on those. So top marks for
I think
direction.
she was gonna do stuff on season 23, like in the original version of season 23, but I can't tell you which story she was gonna do off the top of my
Right.
head. I do cover it in my last season 23 video on Universals.
Rightio. And the music was by Peter Howell. I think you mentioned when we were watching it that you thought that it was a bit off for the story, but it was still good music.
It is good music, yeah. It's just like the story to make it feel more grounded. I feel like
I think that
someone like Mark Harris would do this justice.
On the whole, I think that the only real criticism I have of this story, and something that I think if it was improved, it would make it a better story on the whole, is just being able to manage the tone. That's the only thing that feels a little bit slightly off. is the tone between some of the scenes and also the music is just a little, just sliding a little bit out of place. It doesn't quite.
That's fair.
Doesn't quite hit the center as much as some of other stories do.
I mean, that doesn't really bother me, but like I get why it would bother you, and like that's valid because I do notice it too. So that's fair.
Yeah, just a little bit more communication between some of the people involved.
Yeah.
Would have refined the tone and made it a bit more consistent. That's all I have to say.
Yes.
Right, so are you ready for some trivia?
Ooh, some trivia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Complications involving the robot model for Chameleon prevented him from appearing in other episodes. Chameleon's death makes him the fourth known companion to die while traveling with the Doctor, following Katarina, Sarah Kingdom, and Eirich.
I mean, it really depends on your definition of companion, but he's...
Yes.
Like, if you count Chameleon, if you count Sarah... Heck, if you count Katarina and Brett Vion even, you could count as a companion, and he died.
Yeah, true.
It
was during the production of this serial that Peter Davison and Nicola Bryant participated in their infamous James Bond photo shoot, in which Davison donned a tuxedo and a prop gun and Bryant was in a bikini.
I wish that was an actual story, not gonna lie. Because Peter Davison's not good in that suit.
What, just get rid of either Warriors or Twin Dilemma and just have that before Caves at some point?
Get rid of Warriors. I feel like that was more damaging than the Twin Dilemma.
I haven't seen the Twin Dilemma yet, so I'll have to give my judgment.
Twin Dilemma, I feel like conceptually I get why they did it. It was just the wrong move. However, well, I'm not sure if you could make it a good move. Like do it in a different way to make their concept actually work. Basically, I recommend after watching Stu Bagwell's review on it. Because he does interesting points.
Okay. There are parallels with the H. Rider Haggard and novel She, whose title character renews herself periodically by bathing in a magic flame.
Okay.
Haggard's great-great-great niece, Daisy Haggard, would play Sophie in The Lodger and Closing Time. Very interesting.
It took me a while to actually click like, oh, right.
This is the only televised Fifth Doctor story not to visually contain Tegan Jovanka, because obviously she appears as a vision in Caves. I believe she's mentioned in this episode though, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you can't have the Fifth Doctor without Tegan, basically.
I mean, you can. Big Finish proved that.
But... Yeah, but I'm on TV though.
I feel like, yeah, I mean, theoretically you could, but, like, it just didn't happen.
It's interesting, because I think I was watching a video the other day where someone was saying, like, there's not a companion that sticks around long enough to be known as the Fifth Doctor's definitive companion. I'm like, hello? Tegan.
Tegan is literally in all but 2 of his stories.
Yeah, and she
cameos. She
cameos
in one of the other 2, and she is mentioned in the second of the 2. Like, I guess you can make the argument that there's no definitive Fifth Doctor TARDIS team. But there is a definitive singular companion, that's Tegan.
To date, the only other companion to have been part of every televised story of a given Doctor is Rose Tyler, who appeared in every episode of the Ninth Doctor era. However, I feel like this might change soon, because they're almost suggesting that Yaz is going to be in every single 13 episode.
Yeah.
Depends on if they give her an exit or not. Some people are theorizing that they might just keep her around for the next showrunner, which I don't know about that. I don't know if they'll do that, to be honest.
It'd be interesting.
I'd be interested to see someone else writing for her.
But,
it's
like,
Chris Chibnall.
Yeah, I mean, but, like, she's been around for 3 seasons. How much longer can she stay?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like it's time for her to go. I don't really give a shit about Yaz. I just want something new. I just want something that's not Chris Chibnall.
Yeah. Anyways,
the only interesting thing you could really do with her based on things that have been kind of set up, is if the next Doctor was a male and Yaz suddenly was like, well, what happens now? Like, would Yaz still be attracted to the Doctor if she became a male? I don't know. It's a good question.
But at the same time, like, the Doctor... I don't think the next Doctor should be male. Like, naturally, I personally wouldn't mind, but I do feel like it would make sense that either the next Doctor should be female or a male of colour.
Like, I don't know, call me a reluctant, but like, I don't really give a shit. I just want them to be good. Yeah. That's the thing. I just want them to be good.
Yeah.
That's all I can.
I mean, yeah, that's my view too. If you're good, yeah, but like, I feel like because of like, I don't want Jodie to be the only female Doctor, and I feel like if she gets replaced by a man, it will feel like, they're backpedaling. It's just I just don't want that. Doesn't sit right with me. That's why
it's kind of. To be fair, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, though. Because if you do it, then the Not My Doctors will complain because it's another female, and then if you bring it back to being male, they'll like try and be all victorious and be like, "See, it didn't work."
Yeah, but fuck the Not My Doctors. Yeah. They're not canon.
To be fair, either way, they're just going to be annoying regardless of what you do. Let's be honest.
Exactly. So might as well do the thing that's less damning for everyone that isn't a Not My Doctor. And in my opinion, that's casting another woman. But like, I'm not going to be like, oh, if they don't cast another woman, I'm gonna kill myself. Like some people on Twitter have been like, just. Yeah.
The Master's
but
final
let's not get into those flame wars. Let's speak about other flames, like a planet of them.
The Master's final line, apparently being killed directly squared at the Doctor, was, "Won't you show mercy to your own?" According to the commentary, Fiona Cumming asked JNT how the line was to end, to which he replied, "Brother." However, Anthony Ainley never said the word in any take captured on video, thus fans were free to speculate about how the line was to have ended. In The Sound of Drums, the 10th Doctor strongly implies that the Master was not his brother.
Yeah.
Although there is that line in Smith and Jones, though, where they says, "Oh, do you have a brother?" And he's just like, "No, not anymore."
I feel like Russell was just trying to put instead of leaving evidence out, he puts
bit of a red herring.
Evidence of both sides in. Yeah, and it depends.
Yeah. I think leaving it up to interpretation is safe.
Moffat didn't.
No, Moffat has to stamp everything.
But I don't mind how he did it, personally. I think it was actually handled well.
Well, the way Moffat did it was just like, "I'm not your brother, I'm your sister."
No.
Yeah.
Like, not everything has to be like Star Wars.
Peter Grimwade was furious at the casting of Dallas Adams as Professor Foster. He had written the part for an elderly man, and this casting caused Grimwade to cut his links with the series. Interesting. So Peter Grimwade left Doctor Who because of that.
Because a DILF was casted.
The Master was originally supposed to be killed off for good as Anthony Ainley's contract had expired.
That makes sense. And that makes sense that his final line would be like that, and that makes sense as to why they made a big deal about it in Mark of the Rani.
But then he just comes back in Mark of the Rani, unharmed.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that story in a while. Is it actually explained how he survived?
He's just like, "You don't think that would defeat me?" That usually, I'm made of stronger stuff or something like that. I think he doesn't say that last bit like exactly, but I think that's the gist of what he says.
I remember it being lazy.
It's more so he just doesn't explain it, and he's like, "Bitch, I've survived worse."
Get off.
That's how I would do it. That is how I would do it, admittedly. Just like, I've survived worse.
Well, I think, to be fair, it's not as bad as, like, series 12 where
Magic.
they literally
Oh,
don't
okay.
even have. Oh yeah, obviously end of time with magic. That's weird. But in series 12, the Doctor doesn't even ask him. She just doesn't even ask him how he survived.
Like, if something is drastic, it should be addressed, and I feel like, okay, with End of Time, it makes sense why he would need a reason. Because they made a big thing about, oh, he's dead.
Yeah. It's just
So,
not-
fair enough. Resurrecting him somehow. Magic's a bit of a weird way to do it, though.
It wasn't justified, sadly.
No.
Apparently,
Maybe
originally.
criticize a Russell episode is weird.
Well, I mean, it's like, if writing literally doesn't make sense, it's like, how am I supposed to defend that? It just doesn't make
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah.
I do have a lot of fun with what comes as a result of that moment, but the actual moment itself doesn't really make any sense. So,
Yeah, I get that.
how am I supposed to defend that? I can't.
That's fair.
Yeah. Apparently, Graham Harper was originally meant to direct this, but then he ended up directing Caves instead.
Oh, that was a better one for him to direct.
Mm-hmm. The script originally contained commentary on the issues of religious zealotry, something that was toned down by Eirich Sayward.
So it was going to have more themes.
Yeah. I would have been interested to see what it would have been like if they hadn't toned it down. Like, if they'd gone really hard on it.
Yeah.
In the script, Perry forged a bond with the Doctor in part because he reminds her of her late father, who died at the same age as the Doctor now appears.
I got none of that from what came of the final script.
Clearly not. They must have just... Eirich Sayward must have just phased that out, you know?
Yeah. Rude of him. That would have made Harry a lot more interesting.
It seems like
And
Eirich
would have
Sayward's...
made the stuff... It would have made the stuff in Twin Dilemma work a bit more.
Timonov was originally written by Grimwade as a parody of Iran Ayatollah's Khomeini, I think that's what it says. But this element was greatly reduced in rewrites by Eirich Sayward. So it seems like Eirich Sayward's done a lot of rewrites on this story.
So Eirich Sayward did rewrites and JNT's like, DILF. And it's just like, Peter Grimwade's like, no, don't do this to me.
Yeah, so apparently the reason why they chose to change the costumes is because of the climate in Lanzarote. Which was nice of them to actually give them clothes that would be appropriate for the setting and not have them sweat to death.
Yeah, like that. I've got nothing to say. That's just like proper workers' rights, you know?
This one's a bit funny. Peter Davison later said that his look of sorrow and remorse at having to kill Chameleon was pure acting, and he was genuinely glad to be rid of the troublesome plot prop.
So, I fucking knew it. Like, at the start, he was looking at Chameleon and he's like, will you fucking be gone already?
Filming the scene where Turlough rescues Perry was bizarrely disrupted by a German nudist who believed that Nicola Bryant was actually drowning when she filmed the scene in the water. The man was very unhappy to learn that Bryant was just acting and later ruined a take for the scene on the beach where he ran through the shot.
I want to see that shot, just because that would be funny.
They should have kept it in.
Nah, but like they.
No, they should have, because it would have fit the whole, like, the very, you know, what they were going for with the story. A story for everyone.
Especially if you like men.
Especially if you like German men.
German naked men.
Yes. Nicola Bryant got saved by a naked German man. I wonder what she thinks about that. On the last night in Lanzarote, Dallas Adams and Peter Wingard liberated some turtles kept in the hotel pool and released them into the sea, causing the police to be summoned. Oh, wow.
The story, the behind the scenes of the story sounds like as much as I like the story, the behind the scenes actually is more fucking interesting.
It seems like a bit of a crisis, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I know that Peter Davison didn't really get along with Nicola Bryant that much, did he?
Not at the time, no. Obviously more in recent years, but Not at the time.
John Nathan Turner agreed to use Lanzarote as a setting after Fiona Cumming went there on holiday and sent him a postcard recommending it as a location. He still wasn't convinced. Cumming later went on another holiday there, especially to convince him. She shot an entire roll of photos without any of her family in them, and then presented those photos to Nathan Turner saying that she meant it, and then he agreed to have the story filmed on that location.
Yeah. I do admit, like, every location in Lanzarote that's been used for Doctor Who has been used fairly well, even in the shit story.
Peter Grimwade...
Gotta admit, it looks like the moon, yeah.
Peter Grimwade was chosen to write the script to compensate him losing the job directing Resurrection of the Daleks. Eirich Seward felt that he'd paid his dues to Grimwade, but felt that the script didn't work and wasn't worth it in the end, which is probably why there were so many edits. The reason why they wrote in Chameleon morphing into the Master and Howard is to not have to bring the cumbersome robot prop on location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, that's very clear.
Yeah. The thing is, like, actual Chameleon's screen time in Doctor Who is very limited.
Yeah, prop was very limited, so makes sense. Like, some of the extra screen time it actually got cut out.
It's a good, like, bit of tourist work for Lanzarote, though, because people would have gone to that place after seeing this story, wouldn't they?
Yeah, because it looked really good, especially because Fiona Cumming's good at her job.
Peter Grimwade later said that the commission was just an excuse for the producer to take his team on a gangbang and a nice holiday. It didn't work at all. You just don't commission a story and set in Lanzarote because you want a bloody holiday.
Yeah.
Isn't it just like how they did that for Arc of Infinity? They wanted a holiday in Amsterdam.
Well, they certainly did City of Death because Douglas Adams wanted to be drunk in Paris. And I worked in a reference to that in...
Wasn't there something to do with Dubai and Planet of the Dead as well? Or could I be mistaken about that? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Give your conclusion and a rating out of 10 for Planet of Fire.
It good. As you say, there's not really much you can actually describe in terms of its quality, because it is just a solid story with stunning direction, and all the stuff with like Turlo and Chameleon, all of that is beautifully woven in. Well, especially Turlo stuff. Sure, the tone isn't like the most consistent thing in the world, but I would say, personally, I think it's consistent enough that any deviations aren't that like substantial. The only thing, like, if the accents were better, and the dialogue was less stilted, as well as if the whole story like left more of an impact, like, it's not so memorable. I would say those are the things that are stopping it from being like Kinder level for me. So that's why, because those two minor things are fairly important, and otherwise I'd rate it around the same as Kinder, which for the record I give Kinder a 10. Not like absolute, like, it's like in top 50 level story. Planet of Fire is not that, so I'm gonna give it a 9. I really like it. What can I say?
Right, Planet of Fire, yeah, really solid story. I really like the world building and the religious thing and the reveals for Turlo. And the way that the Fifth Doctor ties into that introduction of Perry was fairly well done outside of some of the dodgy accent stuff. The location was fantastic, and I love the direction. And the Master stuff, while some of the tone was a little bit on the edge in terms of how it was handled, I really enjoyed Anthony Ainley's performance anyway. And the ending for Chameleon, the way the Doctor had to kill him, was quite well done. And just some of the religious allegory, whilst it would have been interesting to see if the full-fleshed version that Peter Grimwade had in mind was done. Eirich said to turn it down, but it still worked, and it was still interesting, and yeah, it's just... It's hard for me to really articulate my thoughts on the story. I just thought it was really solid for the most part, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. Honestly, I'm happy that you even would give it an 8. That's...
Yeah, it's not one of my favorites, but I did really like it. I just think that other stories are better. The bar for Classic Who for me is higher than this, but I still really liked this anyway. I just it's certainly not going to be as memorable as a lot of the other stories. I guess that's the kind of the big point. Obviously the visuals are, but just the actual plot itself is not as memorable as other things. I can't quite pinpoint why that is, but it is.
Yeah,
still
because like
solid.
when you describe it, it's just like, yeah, this is great. Why isn't it memorable? And that's the issue. Because it even has a returning monster, and it has like 2 companion exits, 1 companion introduction.
Yeah.
Surely there'd be iconic stuff in there, and there should be, because like the stuff with Turlo's done well.
Yeah,
I will say oh no, you continue.
I was just going to say the companion exit element of it is actually the best thing about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's handled the best. Although I was implying that it was a case of, if it was a bit better, it would be like Kinder level. I would say, as it is right now, it's actually lagging behind Resurrection of the Daleks and Frontios. And, yeah, I think that's it, actually.
I don't know if this is a hot take. I think I actually preferred The Awakening over the story.
I prefer the story over The Awakening.
Even if The Awakening's not quite as developed, because it's a shorter story, I just thought it was a lot more airtight, and that whole concept of the role-playing thing was just so unique. I loved it.
Yeah. I'd give The Awakening an 8, so it's... I love them both. And I think both are overlooked, and I feel like... Although Season 21 on the whole, I would say is a good season, it's mostly because the lows are... Like, the 2 bookending stories are so bad, like, it cancels out a lot of the good the other stories have. Because I can't really ignore Warriors of the Deep and the Twin Dharma being in the same season.
On this rewatch of Warriors of the Deep, I found more redeeming factors than I did the first time, but it's still a bad story.
Is it still your least favorite Classic Who story?
No, it's not. The Invasion of Time is now.
Okay.
In fact, I think Warriors of the Deep might not even be my least favorite Davison. I think Time Flight might just be slightly below it.
Alright.
Yeah. They're close, though. But I just think with Warriors of the Deep, I found things like... I really liked the sort of the battle... Obviously, the part 1 cliffhanger is a bit silly. But the actual conflict that Turlo was going through in that episode was really interesting. The way he was bouncing between escaping to safety and also being brave. I thought that was a really interesting conflict for him. And then there's a few other things that were really interesting, like, some of the side cast and their plot with the whole brain thing and manipulation. That was cool. But then, of course, it's all let down by the fact that the Silurian thing is meant to be complex, and it's played pitch black, which makes the Doctor's, there should have been another way thing really forced and not... It works for him because we've seen him before deal with the scenario, but as a story, it never really showcases what's redeeming about the Silurians, and that's a big problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. And then, of course, there's the production, which is a disaster.
I can't blame it for that, but it's like... But yeah.
Anyway.
Part of Fire was good, wasn't it?
Yes, there is one more thing we do
now
have
let's
to do.
talk about shitty Hellbent.
There is one more thing we have to do, and that is to defend a story against Hellbent.
What have you got for me this time?
Well, it's interesting, because Hellbent is my least favourite of all time, and by proxy, my least favourite of the Moffat era. So, what we're going to be defending is my least favourite episode from the Russell era. And that is The Idiot's Lantern. I know
Idiot's Lantern.
I think from memory, I think you said you like the story more than me.
I do like it more than you, yeah, because I think it's fun. It's about it. And I don't find Hellbent fun. And that's it. Like, Idiot's Lantern is not amazing. It's got, like The Wire's a serviceable enough villain. Characters are serviceable enough. Doctor and Rose are annoying at the beginning, but I guess that serves to, like, really hammer home, like, okay, they're being like, oh, this twee thing. But as soon as that's taken away, the Doctor's just pissed. And like, although I feel like, yes, it was written for Eccleston, and you can clearly see that, I still think it works for Tennant, because Tennant actually utilizes the material well and makes it work for the 10th Doctor, and just where Ten and Rose are in the season.
Yeah.
And what was this episode immediately preceding it? Was it Age of Steel?
Age of Steel.
Placement-wise in the series, I do feel like it's an odd choice to start the next episode, to start the episode after Age of Steel with something like them just being all twee in that. But I don't mind the idea of a more fun, slightly creepy episode. Because I feel like they were... Part of me kind of feels like they're going for an Empty Child vibe, but it just really didn't work. But hey, I feel like Lady's Lantern, it's nowhere near a classic, but I feel like it's nowhere near the worst RTD era story. It's one of the least memorable ones. I feel like the only memorable stuff about it is the imagery.
Interesting how we're talking about Planet of Fire today, which is not as memorable as the story that came before it or the story that came after it. And the Idiot's Lantern's a bit like that as well. It's like everyone will talk about the Cybermen two-parter and the Satan Pit two-parter more than the Idiot's Lantern.
Yeah. And to be honest, it's because those are more interesting. So, like, with Planet of Fire, I do think it's overlooked. With Idiot's Lantern, I wouldn't say it's overlooked, but I will say that it's not bad. Like, there are worse episodes in that season. Like, Theater's right there. New Earth's right there.
I disagree.
I know you disagree, but I'm just stating my point of view.
My biggest issue with the Idiot's Lantern is actually the fact that, unlike a lot of people, especially on Twitter, I recognize a lot more nuance in those characters than most people on Twitter do.
Yeah.
Whereas the Idiot's Lantern is actually an example where it's written like a pastiche. And it's really frustrating for me because a lot of what I really like about those characters is stripped away. And it becomes this very simplistic, cavalier, cosplaying boyfriend and girlfriend thing. And I just think that's a massive step down, especially when you consider that a lot of their reactions and things that they do are very flippant. And it's just so different to what I would expect those characters to be that it becomes grating. Especially when you have the very cartoonish tone injected into their characters that I don't enjoy. And it's, for me, the comparison between the Idiot's Lantern and Hellbent is that, respectively, they are the episodes for me that characterize those Doctors the worst. However, the mistakes that Idiot's Lantern makes with Tennant aren't anywhere near as bad as the mistakes that Hellbent makes with Capaldi. The difference is that with the Idiot's Lantern is that it's a caricature of the 10th Doctor rather than a character assassination.
I was about to say Hellbent is character assassination.
Hellbent actually properly, discombobulates this whole character and tears it to shreds, whereas the Idiot's Lantern is, surface level wise, has elements that are there, but it's done in a way that's not as nuanced, and it's not as realistic as he is in a lot of other episodes, and that's part of what makes it difficult for me, because I feel like it's very overdone.
Yeah.
And I get that the whole point is that it's meant to be written like a 1950s cartoon, but that's just not believable. And then you've also got stuff like, Rose's thing about the Union Jack, which is actually wrong, and she says the opposite in The Empty Child, so it's like a really weird inconsistency with her character.
Maybe she learns, but that's like not really explained.
Yeah, some of the other big issues I have with the Idiot's Lantern is like I said, it's a pastiche, and so the family abuse drama is not handled as well because it's not given that realistic sense of drama that you should have, where it's very cartoonish. Army general father abuses son, and then at the end of the story, the son just forgives him, and it's just so simple. And
like here's the thing. It's like it's a simplistic depiction, Like, I don't mind simple if it's effective enough, and it's just like, it did the job and then fucked it up.
Well,
for me. Like, here's the thing. I think Idiot's Lantern is more so a functional episode rather than a, something that is trying to be amazing. Like, it's like Curse of the Black Spot, just a bit more shit. Because Curse of the Black Spot was functional, yet it was still consistent, and you're pointing out inconsistencies with it.
Well,
With it and the era, and yeah.
if you want my thoughts on the Curse of the Black Spot, I did talk about it with Will. I believe it was on the Awakening video. I do think the Curse of the Black Spot is worse than the Idiot's Lantern, to be honest.
I do not.
The Idiot's Lantern, the other issue I have with it is the direction. That's something that I will actually say Hellbent does better, is the direction. Because the Hellbent's direction is by Rachel Talalay, who's obviously fantastic.
Amazing.
Whereas the Idiot's Lantern has...
Idiot's Lantern, it's simplistic.
Lantern, it overindulges in Dutch angles and becomes a bit nauseous.
Oh, yeah, it does do Dutch angles a lot.
Yeah. It's definitely Mark Gatiss trying really hard to, you know, cue to the director to be like the time. But I think the problem I have with the story is it's just so... It's leading so far into those tropes and that pastiche and that period of time that it becomes overindulgent in trying to be a pastiche of the time and not be a Doctor Who story. And that's really what lets the story down for me, is that it becomes crooked and narrow, and it's so far removed from
just like the direction.
Yeah, it's so far removed from the reality of what Doctor Who was written like, especially in that period of time, that I think it's just jarring. It's a really jarring story. I do get some enjoyment out of the YA because she's very camp. But it's just got so... It's just so jarring, and it feels very out of place for the Russell era for me. It's just so different, the way it's written, the way it's directed, and the way that it's... If the Idiot's Lantern was, say, a Series 7 episode, I feel like it would probably fit in more, because it's written very similarly in that vein. But in the Russell era, it's such a caricature of the show that it's just... It's upsetting. It's very upsetting. It might not be quite as bad as I let on, but in terms of personally, it is my least favourite of that era, because it's the one that upsets me the most in that regard. Whereas there's a lot of other episodes that are more unpopular that I think have redeeming qualities that people don't give credit for. And there's a lot more nuance than people say that there is, probably either because they don't notice or they don't care. But despite that, Idiot's Lantern is still far better than Hellbent, because the sins it commits are only upsetting to the actual expectations and the consistency of the era, and they aren't as detrimental to the show. They're not like... If the Idiot's Lantern was in an era where it was more fitting, say Series 7 for example, it wouldn't be as jarring as it is in Series 2, I think. The only thing is that I think...
Meanwhile, the only way Hellbent would be fitting is if it was a Joe Martin story. Like, pre-Hartnell. Because, like, the Doctor as we know them would not do that. Should not do that.
Well, the thing is that you can still do all those things, you just have to justify them, but they didn't.
Yeah.
It's like, there's things that the Doctor does in the Waters of Mars that if they weren't justified would be really out of character, but because they are justified, it works, and it works brilliantly.
It's him, like, going insane, and the story knows that. Meanwhile, Hellbent's just like, oh, McClara.
Yeah, I've rambled on a bit before about how the hybrid feels like a really cheap bootleg of the Time Lord Victorious, and does it in a way that just doesn't make sense.
Because, like, the Time Lord Victorious thing is very much in character for the Doctor, just the Doctor's going a bit too far.
Well, all the things that he does when he goes too far, there's reasons for it happening. It's all built up and set up and paid off. Hellbent isn't.
And you can tell, like, he's trying to resist throughout the story,
whereas
but
with the hybrid and Hellbent, the only thing is you get foreshadowing early in Series 9, but the existence of Heaven Sent makes it out of character because it completely goes against everything that came before it. So the direction for the character goes so zigzaggy that it's a twist that's not earned. And
the more I think about Series 9, the more I think Heaven Sent is the outlier, and is the mistake, which is a shame because it's actually the best episode in the season.
Yeah, well,
And
Heaven Sent's the one that goes off course of what the series was planning from the beginning, but does something
and what
so
the series
much
was planning from the beginning was shit.
exactly, and Heaven Sent
was
does
not
something
that.
so much better than what the series was, and then he in Hellbent he went with the narrative that he was always going to from the start, and it's so completely opposite of Heaven Sent that it just becomes a fucking disaster. Whereas Idiot's Lantern is a departure from what I really like about the Russell era, but it's not anywhere near as bad as Hellbent. Not even the slightest.
So Idiot's Lantern is a departure of what you like about not just Doctor Who, but your favourite era of Doctor Who.
It's a lot more upsetting because it comes right after The Age of Steel, which has some incredible character drama in it.
Yeah.
Like the way the characters are written in that story is so well developed and nuanced, and then when you compare it, and then you go straight into the Idiot's Lantern, it's almost like that's all been stripped away, and that's disappointing. Thankfully, it all comes back in The Impossible Planet, and I can move on from it. But it is a bump in the road that I find upsetting.
And then you've got Hellbent, which is...
And that's rare in the Russell era because, even if not every plot is top tier, some of them go up and down a bit. The characterization of the leads is something that's usually very consistent in the Russell era, and the Idiot's Lantern is one of the only ones where that element is lacking for me.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Hellbent... No.
Hellbent takes all of the things that were great in Series 9 and shits on them, whereas Idiot's Lantern doesn't shit on
and it wasn't much.
Yeah. Idiot's Lantern doesn't shit on what came before it. It just temporarily removes it.
Yeah. Hellbent not only doesn't do, it tarnishes, and it's like it. Okay. Trigger warning for viewers. I'm going to talk about something gross. It's kind of like how, last week, I couldn't sleep. One night I just couldn't sleep because I had this bad toothache. Went to the dentist. Turns out, said tooth that was really hurting was decayed to the point where there was no crown, right? Had to get it taken out. That decayed tooth is Hellbent.
Okay. That's one way of putting it. But yeah.
It's nearly 4 a.m. Forgive me.
There was a paragraph written for this one, but would you like to hear what the person that requested it said about the episode?
Yes.
Right. So the swastika antennas is one of them, and they listened to the commentary on the DVD, and some of the design teams said they included them because they thought swastikas had been typical for that time. The person that's making the suggestion is saying that that's a really bad thing to do, is to have swastika, antennas in the story. They also think that the father plot is annoying. The Wire villain is also annoying and not very convincing. The scene in which the energy is also taken from the dog was rather funny bad. All the design or other flaws. I will just preface, this person is not English first language, so the vocabulary might be a bit sloppy. That they've noticed that a normal viewer probably had not noticed. The harder it is to understand why you still think that this episode is better than Hellbent. I think I already said that. As a series finale, Hellbent is the worst. But that cannot be enough to be the worst of all of Who. If you look at all the flaws and the mediocre things that I have pointed out in Lantern, it is stressful to watch, which is not the case with Hellbent, which is relaxing compared to Lantern. If I was forced to watch either of the two episodes, I would choose Hellbent. I always don't see any lasting damage Hellbent allegedly has caused, for example, Rassilon. But if there is any damage done in making him a weak villain, then this damage had been done in otherwise a very good story. End of time. It was totally unnecessary for the story to reveal that the president played by Timothy Dalton is Rassilon. Moffat wanted Dalton back for the role, but latter was unavailable. Moffat still couldn't resist to tell us that the president changed character. I don't think the casting wasn't. I don't think the casting Donald Sumter was good, but the characterization has problems outside of the casting.
Yeah.
Like big problems.
I'm already trying to understand what this person's issue with Idiot's Lantern is. Is it just because some of it just looks bad, and some of it and you can't take it seriously. Meanwhile, Hellbent is bad, but that makes it not bad.
They're saying the difference is that Hellbent is relaxing and the Idiot's Lantern is stressful. It's like, okay.
Idiot's Lantern relaxes me, and I find Hellbent stressful.
I feel like talking about your reaction is not very helpful. It's a bit personal, whereas I feel like if you're trying to go with justification, you need to actually talk about the script and talk about the writing.
Why do you react this way?
Yeah.
Like, is seeing a swastika automatically make you, like...
It's like, that's...
Like, flare up?
Like
which is completely valid. I'm just like...
the swastika is
why?
controversial for obvious reasons, but, like... I don't know, I don't see... Like, he needs to go... For this justification, he would need to go further into this. I don't know.
Like, if you personally cannot, like, accept, like, certain aesthetic choices, okay, but why? And, you know, if you have a good if you have any reason why, sure, but saying, oh, I don't like certain design choices they made, also I find it stressful. And
I mean,
like,
I can understand why it's like I can understand why it would be triggering, but like white supremacy was a thing in that time. It existed.
Yeah.
To deny it would be lying, and I think that
look at Remembrance of the Daleks. That's set about 10 years later.
Yeah.
And that story has that as part of its core themes.
Yep.
So yeah.
I understand the being triggered by the swastikas, but I feel like
that's why I was choosing my words carefully. Just like
it's an understandable trigger, but like I don't think the story is being pro-Nazi at all. I think it's actually, in fact, the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just recognition of the time, really. And that's something that I feel like I've seen a lot of people do this with historical stories, where they will try and look at problematic elements with history and say that the show is doing bad things by having those things in them, whereas I feel like that's really strange.
That's the opposite. That's the opposite, because if they didn't do that, that's them rewriting history to...
Yeah.
You should never rewrite history, no matter for what agenda it is. Like you can't say, rewriting history just so you can have an authoritarian regime where you believe in, like, nationalism and stuff. You can't say that's wrong without saying history's always been woke.
Yeah,
you know?
that's revisionist history, and I think revisionist history is a bit bullshit, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just like point out parts where, for example, your country did good. Yeah, that's fine. Pointing out parts where history was woke, because those things do happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Saying everything's like this, or the opposite just never happened. No. That's, as you say, revisionism. And revisionism with history... pardon me. Revisionist history bad.
Yeah, revisionist history is just... it's just silly. It's really silly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we made our points pretty clear. Idiot's Lantern is better than Hellbent.
I just think it's a fun meme, but nothing more than that. Here's the thing. The reason why I would say Cursed Black Spot is better than both of them is because I give Cursed Black Spot a 7. Because I just think it's good. It's not trying to be anything more than that, and it's not. Idiot's Lantern I'd give like a 6 or a 7. Still not decided.
I would give Idiot's Lantern...
Hellbent is under a 5.
I would give Idiot's Lantern a 4, and I would give Curse of the Black Spot a 3, and I give Hellbent like a 0.5.
Because Rachel Tazer was in the credits.
Yes, and there is that one track by Murray Gold called A Duty of Care that's pretty good.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, like, I it's weird, like, I feel like I'm more lenient to New Who than you are. Like, even though I do prefer Classic Who. But you're more lenient to Classic Who.
I don't know about that. That's a good question, really. It depends on the... Because it depends on the story.
You're more lenient on the RTD era on the whole. But here's the thing: when I like the RTD era, which is quite often, I fucking love it. So fair enough.
I think with the Idiot's Lantern's a bit of... I think the Idiot's Lantern's a bit of an exception where you like it more than I do, whereas I think most of the RTD era I probably like more than you do, especially Tennant stuff.
Yeah, because with Eccleston
we're pretty much on level.
Given...
We both pretty much agree with Eccleston stuff, but...
I mean, I gave Long Game an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I gave everything else... I gave, like, the first 3 stories of Series 1 a 9, but I gave Rose, Dalek, and everything from Father's Day onwards a 10, assuming I give Boomtown and Parting the Ways a 10, but... Which I know I'll give the latter a 10, because I fucking love it, but yeah.
Indeed. Rightio. Anything you want to say before we wrap up this video?
Watch Planet of Fire, you fuckheads. It's good.
Doesn't deserve to be on the list, does it? It really doesn't deserve to be on the list.
It's overlooked. Yeah.
Next time on Western Classic Who, I'm going to be watching The Twin Dilemma with Adam Martin.
Good fucking luck. Is all I'm gonna say. Like I was hoping that I liked The Twin Dilemma a bit more. I liked it less. Even with, like, the prior context of, okay, they were trying to be fucking... It was trying to be hard to watch. And I was like, okay, maybe that's a profound thing that they're trying to... No, they fuck it up. They even fuck that up, so...
Well, we'll have to wait and see what I think about it. I guess the question will be, will The Twin Dilemma be my 4th dud? That's the question.
Yeah, that is the question.
I'm not sure. Will season 21 be the first season that has 2 duds in it? It is possible.
Oh, yeah.
It is possible.
It is very possible, and it is... I'm looking forward to find out the answer.
I am too. I'm very looking forward to it. Of
And
course,
it's
before
been
that
lovely...
point... Of course, before that point, I get to watch Caves, which I'm very looking forward to, but, you know.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's been lovely doing these, and next time I'm here is going to be Silver Nemesis, which we've already done.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so because it's probably going to be my last time on the series before Dimensions in Time. It's been great.
Unless, of course, we end up getting you on Dimensions in Time as well, hopefully.
Well, yeah, I'm going to be on Dimensions in... Yeah, I was meaning, like... Because I wasn't count Dimensions Time. That's going to be a unique occasion. So it's going to be like my last proper one, where it's like 1-to-1.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Indeedy. Rightio.
But yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much.
All good. Thank you for coming on, and we'll see you next time for The Twin Dilemma.
Goodbye.